Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game S. So today I got a fun and interesting episode for you guys this evening as we're taking a look at Super Polygon GP. I know what you're thinking, we just talked about Super Retro GP last week, and that is how quickly these things stack up. We have another Sega Model 1 inspired arcade racing game to play today. While this may look and feel like Super Retro GP visually, it plays completely different and shouldn't really be considered the same game from a different developer, but a completely unique experience that just happens to share a graphical style together. Let's jump right into Super Polygon GP because this is something I've seen on Twitter, and I talked to the maker in the development process, but just so you are aware, I bought this in early access for $13, so it was not given to me. And this immediately looks familiar, the same concept as Super Retro GP, where you have that Model 1 polygon style with the flat shaded graphics. Although I would say the geometry complexity here is more to Model 2, if not Model 3, just without any of those textures. But again, it is a super fun visual look that people can't get enough of these days. But of course, this is an arcade racing game, so the first thing we got to get out of the way is talk about the handling characteristics, the physics engine, and the overall sensation of what it's like to race in this game. And the good news is, for an early access game, everything feels really nice here. I do like the handling controls, I do like the physics engine, although it doesn't really play or feel anything like a Sega Model 1 arcade racing game a la Virtua Racing. This to me plays way more like something like Daytona USA, which is not a bad thing, but if you put this side by side with Virtua Racing, it doesn't really have the same feel in the controls. But any game where you can totally get flipped twice into a lagoon has got to be worth something, that's for sure. And that is the fun thing of Super Polygon GP, the sensation of speed, the crashes, the overall complexity in the course design, and the fact that there's 30 racers on the field at once really does make this thing absolutely chaotic in the best ways possible. And in some ways this kind of feels more like Ace Driver visually than a Sega Model 1 game, because this reminds me of Namco's Ace Driver and Ace Driver Final Lap. But it's so awesome we keep getting these new retro arcade racing games coming out, because if you know me and you know the channel, you know I absolutely love a good arcade racer. And this is again in early access, so not all of the features are here, and you will encounter a bug every once in a while, but otherwise the performance and stability were pretty much rock solid the entire way through. And I love that you can even bump up against the cars in front of you and basically get them up on your bumper and flip them into the air. This is definitely a game where driving aggressive is the #1 name of the game. If you want to get that first place finish to unlock more courses, you're going to have to be aggressive around pretty much every turn and use drifting and straightaways to your advantage. Because if you try to drive too cautiously in this game, you're not going to hit your performance target and you're not going to get any stars. And pretty much every course outside of the first area is locked behind a progression gate, so you're going to have to unlock things as you go along. And that sense of progression is definitely going to drive the game forward. But again, I just love the fact that we're getting more arcade racing games in 2024. Sure, there's a lot of racing games on PC and on console, but not many of them go for the pure arcade racing experience, the stuff like Daytona USA, Virtua Racing, Ridge Racer, and titles such as that. So it's awesome to see another game in this particular subgenre pop up. And when you marry it together with all of these fun flat shaded polygons, you really do have a recipe for seeing something special, and that is always something to be celebrated. And I will be curious to follow along with this game as it leaves early access to see what other modes are going to come in, but you'll see there if you do make a mistake and get bumped, you're going to get spun around, and if you accidentally duff your car here, if you crash it, you're going to lose a lot of progress. So it's a real risk versus reward situation. But as we travel down this canyon here with all of these chunky polygons in the mix, it is such a fun look. Now if I had to compare this to Super Retro GP, this definitely has a better look as far as the complexity is concerned, but it kind of feels a little bit more like it's stuck between two generations of hardware, Sega Model 1 and Sega Model 2. So I would say personally, I would like it if maybe the clouds, that skybox there, blended a little bit more retro, but otherwise these weird polygonal clouds that sit above the course are such a strange and unique look. It really does catch your eye and make you want to look at other things. And the best part is pretty much every course has its own distinct visual language, and you're going to want to see every single course to see what it has to offer, not just for the racing but for the graphics. Game also has a soundtrack, of course they all do, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be back and tell you more about the game.
Fastest lap. Checkpoint. Whoa!
Fun soundtrack, but it's never going to live up to anything like Daytona USA or Sega developed games because they had a whole musical team behind them, but it does drive the intensity of the racing forward. And speaking of the racing, again we're going to go back to the overall handlings and physics engine. You can do some nice drifts in this game, and letting off the accelerator when you come into corners is going to give you a much tighter turning radius. But if there is one thing I'd like to improve about the handling, it's that the wheel seems to autocorrect all the way back to centered very quickly when you actually let off of the analog controls. I feel like it almost snaps right back to where it came from. So I'd love a little bit more adjustability in the overall dead zone in control scheme to kind of line the game and the car up the way you would want to drive it. It's not a bad thing that control snaps back to center. It's probably a little bit of a driving aid for new players, but for me it kind of felt like, especially on a straightaway, you could just let your thumb off the thumbstick and continue to drive just with the accelerator pressed down. But again, this is early access, and a lot of those things can be adjusted just with a few variables in the code to kind of change around the analog dead zone. As we come into this next track here, I am now playing on the retro graphics mode. There are two modes, and this will take down a little bit more of the visual detail, getting it closer in line with a traditional Sega Model 1 looking game like Virtua Racing. And you'll see here right around the corner, this is Area 52, and I absolutely just crashed directly into a UFO, which is fun as far as having an obstacle on the course. I just wish the game did that a little bit more. It's the only time in this gameplay session and capturing I actually saw something like that, and it really makes me want something like a fan game for San Francisco Rush. We get so many Sega inspired arcade racing retro games, but no one really seems to want to go back into the San Francisco Rush era and make a modern game like that. So if any developers are listening, definitely do that. You'll make me very happy, and I will definitely make a video about it. But as far as the course design in Super Polygon GP is concerned, the courses in fact are great. There's tons of different variety in them. Some are going to be oval, some are going to have a ton of different chicane and hairpin turns. Every course is going to feel new and unique, and you're going to have to learn each and every one of them if you want to get better at the game and continue to progress. And that really is the fun part about this. I'm just playing the arcade mode, but there is a full progression mode as well that you can definitely check out, and I recommend that as well. The only other thing I think I would probably improve on a little bit is the menu system isn't anywhere near as pretty as the actual game is in gameplay. But again, it's just so much fun we're even getting these experiences. We are getting spoiled in 2024 for throwback Sega-style arcade retro games, and that is something that I'm always advocating for because arcade racing is my favorite genre, and this game definitely is a fun addition to it. And it's on sale in Steam for like $13 right now, so really you can't go wrong with the overall price. You're not spending a lot to get a decent package here. There's 16 courses that I saw off the top, and I'm sure there's going to be even more that I haven't found, and more game modes added once it leaves early access. So for 13 bucks you really are getting a very fun package, and I do like when the game hews more towards the green looking colors. It gives me that Sega vibes with that blue sky. Definitely a lot of inspiration on offer here, and that is great because if you're going to try to emulate one arcade racing game maker, Sega should be at the top of your list, Namco a very close second. And again, I do get some Namco vibes here as well with the Ace Driver series. If you've never played that one before, definitely check it out. It kind of feels like Ridge Racer had a baby with Virtua Racing, and Namco spit out its own Formula 1 style game. But this is just exciting. We keep getting these type of games in 2024, and it is fun to know that there is still the love out there for the classic arcade racer with the Sega inspiration, and these see-through transparent polygonal clouds above have such a unique look. This almost feels like you're playing in a children's toy, not an actual full-size race car. And as we get into the cockpit mode, the sensation of speed is absolutely ridiculous. But again, any game where you can just see this much color, have this many courses, and have this fun definitely is something that I can't recommend enough that you do check out. If you do every once in a while though encounter this bug, I'm going to teach you how to fix it. For some reason, every once in a while the game will start to drop controls. You won't be able to shift gear and the analog controls will go out. If you just quit and restart, you'll be back again. And that's the only real complaint I can find about this game, is every once in a while the controls bug out and you need to quit and go back into the game. But otherwise, Super Polygon GP is a ton of fun. It's unique while feeling very similar to Sega, and I know we just talked about a game just like this last week, but these two titles, Super Polygon GP and Super Retro GP, while sharing a visual look, do feel like completely different games. So give this one a shot if you want. It's 13 bucks on Steam and you don't really have much to lose. Sure that I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.